So, in the previous portion, we learned about building of the tabernacle. You remember? And the tabernacle is a resting place for God. That's what it was. We build a tabernacle, a place where God could be. Today, we are going to concentrate on one of the vessels of the tabernacle. It's an interesting vessel. It is called the kiyor. The kiyor. That's what we're going to learn about today. And we're going to learn it according to the Kabbalah. So we're going to see. Let's start with source number 1. It says, Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe le'emor, and God spoke to Moshe saying, Ve'asita kiyor nechoshet, and you should build a wash basin out of copper, ve'chano nechoshet, and the base of it should also be copper, lerachza, so that you could wash. ונתת אותו בין אוהל מועד ובין המזבח, and you should put it between the meeting tent and between the altar. ונתת שם המים, you should put over there water. And what is going to be used for? ורחצו אהרון ובניו ממנו, Aaron and his sons are going to wash from it. את ידיהם ואת רגליהם, they're going to wash both their feet and their hands and their feet. When are they going to do that? בבואם אל אוהל מועד, when they're going to come to the meeting tent, ירחצו מים ולא ימותו. They're going to wash with water so that they will not die. Or בגישתם אל המזבח, either that or when they come close to the altar, לשרת, in order to serve, להקטיר אישה לאדוני, to bring a sacrifice to God. So the Kohanes have to wash right over there. Okay. Let's see what's going on over here. This is from the Rebbe. The Rebbe explains, עניינו של הכיור הוא, what's this wash basin all about? הוא שכדי שהכהן יוכל להיכנס בטהרה אל הקודש, we want the Kohen to be able to come in pure to the holy, כדי להקריב קורבן להשם, so that he's going to bring a sacrifice to God. Or בשביל להשתחוות לפני השם, when he comes to bow down in front of God. So it says, שהרי ביערי קנית אסורה. Just coming to the temple for no reason, that's forbidden. If you're coming to the temple, there has to be a reason. You need to bring a sacrifice. Or you want to thank God. You want to pray. Yeah, there has to be a specific reason. You cannot just come to the temple just to experience it. There has to be a reason. שהרי ביערי קנית אסורה, כי אם לצורך איזה תכלית. There has to be a reason why a person comes to the temple. So, הוא צריך לרחוץ תחילה ידיו ורגליו מן הכיור. So the Kohen, when he comes in, before he starts anything, he needs to do what? He needs to wash both his legs and his hands. Continue. ועל זה נאמר, and on this it says, ועשית כיור נחושת, you should make a wash basin out of copper, וחנו נחושת, and the base should also be out of copper. שהכיור וקנו, and this is the strange things.
מה זה קנו?
בייס.
אז שתי כיורים.
לא, יש את הכיור, ויש את איפה שהוא עומד, על המקום שהוא עומד עליו. שהכיור, the strange part is, that usually what was used in a temple, what did they use? For all the other material. If it was metal, what was it made out of? Gold. שהכיור וקנו לא נעשו מזהב. And this is a strange one. If you should make it out of gold, like everything else in a temple. But it says שהכיור וקנו לא נעשו מזהב. They were not made out of gold. or כסף, not even out of silver, אלא מנחושת. They were made out of copper. שהוא הפחות של מתכות. That's the cheapest of the metals. So the question is, what's going on over here? It's in the temple. It's in the tabernacle. God should have told them to use gold for it. Or at least use silver. But not copper. So let's see. It says, why is it copper? מניין לקחו את הנחושת? Where did they take the copper עבור הכיור וחנו? For the wash basin in its base. So it says they took it from ממראות הצובעות, from the mirrors that put up legions, from the mirrors that made an army. What's the mirrors that put up legions? כמסופר בדברי חז"ל, like it is told in the stories of the sages, שבנות ישראל היו בידן מראות. It says the Jewish women had in their hands mirrors. What were the mirrors made out of? שהיו עשויים מנחושת כלל. They used to make them out of shining copper. They used to take copper and shine it until it was, you can see your reflection in it. והיו מצחצחים ומבריקים אותם. They used to shine it to such a degree עד שהיה נראה בהם מראה הפנים, until it used to become a mirror. You could see your face in it. So from that. ואף אותם, it says, לא יקבו מלהביא לנדבת המשכן. So the women even brought their mirrors to as a donation for the tabernacle. And now comes the problem. When the mirror brought down this donation to Moshe, and they told them, here, we want to donate our mirror, what did Moshe say? Moshe said, take away this disgusting thing. He says, do you know what you guys use it for? You use it for to look beautiful and then be with your man. That's what you bring into the temple, your relationship with your husbands? This is what you bring into the temple? That's a nice thing to bring to the temple? What are you doing? והיה מואס בהם משה. And Moshe despised them. He looked at them and says, guys, what are you doing? You crazy? מפני שעשויים ליצר הרע. It says, the only reason this was made, this mirror was made, is for your evil inclination. To have relationship with your husband, your evil inclination. That's what you bring it for? Over here to the temple? It's not appropriate. What are you bringing in here for? That's what Moshe told them, the women. And then what happened? God stopped him. God said, you wrong, Moshe. And what did God say? Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God told them, Moshe, you're wrong. The women are right. Kabel, it says you have to receive it. Why? Ki elu chavivim alai min hakol. Because this is my favorite donation. More than the gold, more than the silver, more than everything. This is my favorite donation. This copper. And not just regular copper. Copper that was used for what? For what? The Yetzer Hara, for the evil inclination. It says, that's my favorite thing, God says. This carnal pleasures, it's called in English. Pleasures of the flesh, it was used for. And that's what you bring into the temple, and God says, yes, this is my favorite thing in the temple. And that's what we need to understand today. Okay, so let's look at source number 2. Vayas et הכיור נחושת. He made the wash basin out of copper, ואת קנו נחושת, and he made the base out of copper, במראות הצובעות, in the mirrors of the legions, אשר צבעו פתח אוהל מועד, that they congregated inside of the opening of the meeting tent. And Rashi explains, what is this marot hatzovot? Why do you call it the mirrors of armies, the mirrors of legions? What does that mean? So Rashi explains. בנות ישראל היו בידן מראות. It says the Jewish women had in their hands mirrors. שרואית בהם כשהן מתקשטות. They used to look in these mirrors when they used to beautify themselves. ואף אותן לא עקבו מלהביא. And even these mirrors they brought as donation. והיה מואס משה בהן. And Moshe was disgusted by them. He says, you're bringing this into the temple? Your evil inclination? Your relationships with your husbands? מפני שעשויים ליצר הרע. They were made for the evil inclination. אמר לו הקדוש ברוך הוא קבל. God told him, receive it. כי אלו חביבים עליי מן הכל, because this is my dearest one. I like this evil inclination thing, I like it the most. Why? And then God explains to him why. Do you know why? שעל ידיהם העמידו אנשים צבאות רבות במצרים. It says, because of these mirrors, the women were able to make many armies in Egypt. So let's go back to Egypt. How did Paro want to kill the Jewish people? What was his mission? How was he going to do it? So if you remember, he separated the men and the women. He put the men into work camps, you know, just like in Germany. Yeah, they were in war camps, and they were so tired, they didn't want to have relationship with the wives after they finished the work. And not only they were tired, they were thinking, why am I bringing a child? If I bring a child, you know what's going to happen to him? He's going to become a slave, just like me. So what's the use? So they didn't want to have children, the men, anymore. So let's see what happened. כשהיו בעליהם יגיעים בעבודת פרך, it says when their husbands were very tired doing hard labor, היו הולכות, they used to walk because they lived in Goshen. And the Jews were working in Pitom and Ramses. You remember, they were working in the cities, different place. So they would come, the women would come all the way from Goshen to the war camps. ומוליכות להם מאכל ומשתה. They would bring to them food and drink. ומאכילות אותם. And they used to feed them. ונוטלות המראות. And with the food, each one used to bring a mirror. וכל אחת רואה עצמה עם בעלה במראה. And each one used to show, like take a selfie. You know, it says, look at me and look at you. They used to show their husbands. ומשדלדתו בדברים. It used to convince him. It says, let's have another kid. Let's have another baby. And he would say, you crazy. First of all, I'm tired. And first of all, what are you bringing another baby for? For what? It's going to be a slave like me? They're going to throw him into the Nile? What's the use? And so what did the woman used to tell the men? Lomar, they used to tell them, Ani na'am mimcha. He says, look at me. Look at how beautiful I am. Much more beautiful than you are. ומתוך כך מביאות לבעליהם לידי תאווה, and that would bring to their husbands into a desire. Their husbands would desire this. ונזקקות להם. They would have relationships. ומתעברות, they used to get pregnant. ויולדות שם, and they used to give birth over there. Yeah. שנאמר, because it says, תחת התפוח עוררתיך. It says, under the apple tree, they awakened the men. They used to go to an apple tree. It says that the apple tree, the leaves are big, so that it will be, nobody would see. Yeah? And under the apple tree, they used to convince the men to have relationships so they can have more babies, so they can have more legions, so they can grow the Jewish nation. וזה שנאמר במראות הצובעות. And this is what it says, the mirrors that make armies, the mirrors that make legions. Okay? So let's look page number 6. והעניין בזה בעבודת כל אחד ואחד מישראל. We're going to learn all of this in our service to God. In other words, in Kabbalah. What do we learn from this? In everyday life. Actually, what does that teach us? ובהקדמה. So first of all, היד שנשתלחה במקדשך, it says the fact that the hand was sent on the temple, which means the temple is destroyed, הייתה רק בנוגע לבית המקדש הגשמי. That was only the physical temple. The physical temple was destroyed by our enemies. אבל בית המקדש שבליבו של כל אחד ואחד מבני ישראל, but the temple that is in the heart of each and every Jew, עליו נאמר ושכנתי בתוכם. It says on that God dwells in each and every one of us. בתוך כל אחד ואחד מישראל. הרי זה תלוי בו בלבד. It says, you want now, if the temple inside of you is going to be destroyed or not going to be destroyed, you know who's responsible for that? You. Your enemy cannot destroy it. It's up to you if that temple inside of you is going to be destroyed or not. ואם רק משתדל ועוסק בזה, if a person builds his own temple, אזי יש לו מקדש בנוי על תילו. Then he can have a temple inside of him, which means that the temple for him was never destroyed. He could live like in the time of the temple. Now what does that mean? It says, so we learned. How do we build a temple to God? We learned last week. How do we build a temple to God? Do you remember? Yeah, but how do we do it? What do we do every day? Action, very good. We have to go out into this world and change the world. Take the money, take the gold, take the energy, take the silver, take everything from this world and elevate it to God. אומנם משכן זה צריך להיות נלקח מענייני העולם. This tabernacle needs to be taken from matters of the world. כמו המשכן כפשוטו, just like the temple, just like the tabernacle. שנעשה מזהב וכסף ונחושת. It was taken from the energy of gold, the energy of silver, and the energy of copper. It says, י' ג' או ט"ו דברים. It was either 13 things that were donated to the temple, or according to some opinion, it was 15 things that were donated to the temple. והיינו, what does it mean? שצריך לעשות מענייני העולם דירה לא יתברך. That we need to take all these matters of the world, all the energies of the world, and make from these energies of the world a dwelling place for God. כאמור לעיל, like we explained above, בארוכה, שזוהי תכלית התורה. This is why God brought us into this world. To build the temple, and the temple is, how do we build the temple? We go out into the world, and we take the gold and silver of the world, and we elevate it to God. לעשות מהעולם מקום קדוש בית מקדש. To make from this world a holy place. That's our job. That's how we build the temple today. So, many people think, you know what building the temple is? Building the temple is going to shul, learn Torah, put on tefillin. Yeah, that's what they think doing the temple today. But that's not enough. That's not enough. It's enough if you were monks. You know, monks, that's what they do. They're all the time with God, on top of the mountain, meditate, think about God and about God. But that's not what Jews are supposed to do. We have to go out into this world, yeah, and elevate the physical gold, the physical silver, the copper. We have to elevate all this to what? To godliness. But there's going to be a problem. This world has to have, when we elevate things in the world, we have to have the right intention. Because sometimes, you know, when we deal with gold and silver and all the things, you know what happens? We start dealing with gold, and then you know and then what happens? What do we want with the gold? Do we want to take the gold and bring it to God? No. Usually when we start to go out to the world and we start dealing with the gold, dealing with the silver, what do we want to do with this gold and the silver? For the evil inclination we want it. We want to go to the casino, we want to go on vacation, we want to have good wine, good steaks. We want to have a nice car, a nice house, a nice furniture. We want to use it for our own things. We don't want to use it for godliness. So it says, over here you're supposed to take the gold and the silver, but not for just to have gold and silver in the bank account. What's the gold and silver for? God. For godliness. That's right. The problem is that, you know, if we come to shul and we learn Torah all day long, we want Torah. We want godliness. But if we go out into this world and we deal with gold and silver all day long, what do we want after a while? We want gold and silver. And then, not only because, in other words, the gold and silver itself makes us dirty. Torah doesn't make us dirty. But going out in this world, mixing with the gold and silver, we want to use it for our animal soul, not for the godly soul. We want to use it for the wrong purposes, not for the right purposes. That's the problem. So let's continue. On page 7, ולכאורה אינו מובן. But it's not understood. כיוון שעוסקים בענייני העולם, since we are going to be busy doing matters of the world, הרי לא ייתכן שלא יתדבק משהו. You're dealing with gold and silver, you're dealing with business, you're going to care about gold and silver and business. וכפי שרואים בטבע בני אדם, just like we see in the nature of people, שהמתאבק עם מנוול, when we start going up and we start fighting with somebody who's dirty, נדבק בו אבק ואפר. The person who started to deal with dirty things, he himself becomes dirty. ואפילו רפש וטיט, and he becomes very dirty. ובמצב כזה, it says, and when a person becomes so dirty, הרי לא שייך להיכנס חס ושלום לבית המקדש. It says, then later on when he comes back to shul, after all this gold and silver that he's been doing, then what now? He's all dirty with what? With all the dirtiness of his evil inclination that came when he was dealing with matters of the world, trying to elevate them. וכדאיתם במשנה, and just like it says in the Mishnah, שאפילו להר הבית אסור להיכנס באבק שעל רגליו. It says, even to the temple mount, you have to wash off the dirtiness. The dirtiness from what? The dirtiness of the physical world, of dealing with the gold and silver of the world. It has to be washed. והעצה לזה, so what do you have to do? שקודם הכניסה לבית המקדש צריך להיות עניין של רחיצה. That before a person enters the temple, he needs to wash himself. ומה צריך לרחוץ? So in himself it says, look, they went to the mikveh already beforehand. But still they need to wash. But they're not going to the mikveh again. What are the Kohanim washing? Do you know what he used to wash? ומה צריך לרחוץ? את חלקי הגוף שעל ידם הוא עיקר העסק בענייני העולם. They need to wash only those parts that they dealt with in the world. Oh, very good. שהם הידיים והרגליים, the hands and the legs. And this is what the verse says, ורחצו את ידיהם ואת רגליהם. They have to wash their hands and their legs. It says, let's see the idea behind it. הרגליים, what did the legs do? The legs took them away from places of holiness, took them away from the temple, took them away from shul, took them away from places of learning Torah, and put them where? In the marketplace. A place which is dirty with gold and silver. מביאים את האדם בעולם. The legs are the ones who are going to take the person in this world. היינו, שמצד עצמו היה צריך להיות בית המקדש, the person should have been in holy places. בדלת אמות של תורה, he needed to be close to the Torah. או בדלת אמות של תפילה, או he needed to be close to davening. אלא שרגליו מובילים ומביאים אותו בעולם הזה הגשמי. But his legs walked him off to the business world. And God told him to go to the business world. It wasn't his idea. God told him, leave Torah, leave mitzvahs, and go where? Go build a temple for me. What does it mean building a temple? Go gold, go silver, go to the market, open a business, deal with the world. ובפועל הרי הרגליים הם העומדים ישירות על הארץ והאפר גשמי. The legs are the things that are taking the place and standing the human being on earth. והידיים, what about the hands? הם הכלים הממוצעים. They are the middlemen. The hands are the middlemen בין האדם לעולם, between the man and the world. שעל ידם נוטל דברים מהעולם. With the hands, the person takes all the things from the world, ועל ידם נותן דברים בעולם. And through them he gives things to the world. The hands are the one who's busy with the business. So now this is an interesting thing that we're going to learn. We're going to learn deep Kabbalah now. Deep Kabbalah. It says when the Alter Rebbe was 15 years old, By that time, that he was 15 years old already, he went through the entire Gemara with all the commentaries. When he was 15 years, he was already married. Yeah, 15 years old, you can imagine. Person 15 years old, did not just read like people do Daf Yomi now. They just read and understood it with all the commentaries, the entire Gemara. And he was thinking, where should he go to learn? Yeah, he could go to the Magid Mimizvich, or he can go to Vilna, to the Gaon Vilna. So he asked people, what's in Vilna? So it says, in Vilna they know how to learn. So it says, and what's with the Magid Mimizvich, who was one person after the Baal Shem Tov, was a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov. So he says, what about the Magid Mimizvich? He says, over there you learn how to pray. So he thought, to learn, I already know how to learn. So he went to the Magid Mimizvich. Now, when he came to the Magid Mimizvich, he sat over there, and the Magid Mimizvich was teaching a Mishnah. Now, the Mishnah that you and me learned it a few weeks ago. So it's going to be very appropriate. Yeah? We actually had, if you remember, Yetziot Shabbat, going out of Shabbat from one domain to another domain. And the Magid Mimizvich was teaching the Mishnah, and he couldn't understand a thing. And we're not talking about teaching the Gemara. He was teaching the Mishnah. And he was talking about such ideas that his mind blew away. And that's what we're going to do now, just touch on those ideas of the Mishnah and see what the Alter Rebbe learned with the Maggid. Or even better, we're going to see how the Maggid looked at the world. When the Maggid learned Mishnah, it's not like us learning Mishnah. So let's look at the Mishnah and then we try to explain it. Okay. So the Mishnah goes like this. Yetziot Shabbat. The Mishnah goes about taking from one domain to another domain during Shabbat. It says one is not allowed to take from the private domain to the public domain, or carry from the public domain into the private domain. You're not allowed to carry objects between the two. You remember? We learned the whole thing. Yetziot Shabbat, this is going out on in Shabbat, ha'avarat metaltelin mereshut hayachid lereshut harabim, taking objects from the private domain into the public domain, shem asurot b'Shabbat, that they are forbidden on Shabbat. Keitzad. And we learned it. How? So it says, He'ani omed bachutz, says the poor person is standing outside. Ubaal habayit bifnim, and the owner of the house is standing where? Inside. Parshat ani et yado lifnim, it says the poor person extends his hand to the inside. Venatan letoch yado shel baal habayit, and he gave into the hand of the owner of the house. Now, immediately I don't understand the Mishnah. I'll tell you why I don't understand the Mishnah. Who's supposed to give who to whom? And over here, what does it say? So how did we explain it? Do you remember how we explained it? That the poor person is giving him a basket, so that he can put stuff in the basket and he can take the basket back. You remember? That's the way we explained it. But we're not going to learn it this way over here. Right? You remember that? So it says the poor person is extending his hand, giving something to the owner of the house. Or, it then gives us the opposite house, the one that makes sense to us. Pashat baal habayit et yado lachutz. The owner of the house extends his hand to the outside. Venatan letoch yado shel ani. And he put it into the hand of the poor person. That makes sense. He takes food, he takes wine, he takes challah and wine, and he gives it into the hand of the poor person. That's the owner of the house. So this is how the Maggid started his class. So far so good. The Alter Rebbe, he knows the entire Gemara. This you know. All of a sudden, let's see how the Maggid is learning it. Let's look inside. וכידוע הפירוש בדברי המשנה. So according to the Hasidic, Kabbalistic explanation of the Maggid, to these words of the Mishnah, העני עומד בחוץ ובעל הבית בפנים, that the poor person is standing outside and the owner of the house is standing inside. שבעל הבית בפנים, what does it mean the owner of the house is inside? Who's the owner of the house? Who's the owner of the world? Who's the owner of the house? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it says, בעל הבית is whom? Kadosh Baruch Hu. That שבעל הבית בפנים קיה לקדוש ברוך הוא. When he says בעל הבית, it means what? It means God. והעני, so if בעל הבית is God, who's the poor person outside? Us. We are the poor people. Right? We are the poor people. והעני בחוץ. קאי על איש ישראל. That goes on us. That what's our job? שצריך למלא את שליחותו בעולם הזה הגשמי. That we need to do what we're supposed to do down here in this world. And what are we supposed to do down here in this world? Build the Mishkan. How do we build the Mishkan? With gold and silver. וישנו העניין, it says, this is our job. פשט בעל הבית את ידו לחוץ. Sometimes we see God extending his hand to the outside. What does it mean? Sometimes God goes out and helps us. Sometimes it's a miracle. Sometimes even without a miracle. But God extends his hand to the poor person and he helps him. He helps him with his job. He helps him do what he needs to do. שזהו על דרך מה שכתוב, and this is what it's written, דודי שלח ידו מן החור. It says in שיר השירים, my lover, my beloved, sent his hand from the hole. So sometimes we can see the hand of God doing something, a miracle. וכמו כן, and then there's the opposite. ישנו העניין דפשט העני את ידו לפנים. And sometimes we give something to God. It says, what do we give to God? We build his home. He asks us, build me a home. So this is what we give to him. We build his home. להכניס מרשות הרבים לרשות היחיד. How do we build his home? We take from the public domain. What's in the public domain? Gold and silver in this. And we have to bring it into the godly domain, to the only domain. Do you understand? You see how it is? See, the Alter Rebbe is coming to a class about Mishnah, and this is what he's learning. And his mind, just like ours, it's a whole new world. And imagine, this is the way the Maggid learns all the Mishnahs. Every Mishnah he learns this way. You think the Mishnah is talking about rich people? It's talking about God, Jewish people. All Kabbalah, all the Mishnah, all the Gemaras, everything is all what? All Kabbalah. Let's continue. וחלקים, but there's a problem. God, you would think, we touch all the things out in this world. What do we bring to God? The gold and the silver and the copper of the world we bring to God, right? But you know what's the problem? It becomes dirty. Why it becomes dirty? Because we on the way use those gold and silver for us. וחלקים אלו שבאים במגע מעיני העולם, and those parts that come into touch with the matters of the world, הרגליים שמביאים את האדם בעולם, the legs that bring the person into this world, והידיים שבאמצעותם נוטל דברים מן העולם, and the hands that he makes the work through the hands, או שמכניס בעולם דברים שלמעלה מהעולם, צריך לרחוץ אותם. So you need to wash those hands and legs before you come and bring it to God. And we need to understand what does that mean. So let's see. Page 10. כיצד היא הרחיצה? So what do you mean to wash, and how do we wash our hands and legs? הנה רחיצה על פי דין בניגלה דתורה, the way wash according to nigle of the Torah, על ידי זה שנוטלים מים, we take water, ושופכים על הידיים והרגליים, and we pour it on our hands and legs. שאז הידיים והרגליים עצמם, that then the hands and legs themselves, העור והבשר והעצמות, the flesh, נשארים במקומם, they remain exactly the same. ואילו האבק ורפש וטיץ' נדבק עליהם, but all the dirtiness that fell on them, הולכים ונשטפים על ידי המים. They become washed through the water. As long as you put what? Enough water. You have to put enough water. ששופכים עליהם. And what's the water? Torah. Very good. So we go out into this world and we become dirty with the gold and the silver. And what's going to wash our hands and legs from it? Learning Torah. Very good. ועניינו בעבודה, כמו שכתב הרמב"ם, and it made in the service like the Rambam wrote, שרמז יש בדבר. It hints, the Rambam says. הביא נפשו במי הדעת הטהור. It says you need to bring your soul in the water of knowledge that purifies you. ידיעת אלוקות. What does it mean? Learn Kabbalah, learn Chassidus. If you don't learn Chassidus, you don't learn Kabbalah, when you see gold in the world, do you know what you see?
Gold.
You see gold, you see something for whom? For yourself. But if you start learning Kabbalah, learning Chassidus, when you see gold in the world, do you know what you see? You see godliness. You see a way. This is the house of whom? The gold. The house of God. And the only way to see it is how? To learn. There's no other way to do it. You have to wash your hands and feet from this dirtiness that you think all the gold and the silver belong to whom? To you. ידיעת אלוקות, דע את אלוקי אביך. It says you should know the God of your father. שזהו עניין תורת החסידות. This is what the Maggid was telling the Alter Rebbe. When you go out into the world, you have to learn about godliness so that you see that the gold and the silver in the world belongs to him and not to you. וטבע הדברים, it says it's by nature, שבכוח מי הדעת הטהור, it says the more a person learns, the more a person puts himself in the mindset of Torah, in the mindset of Chassidut, in the mindset of Kabbalah, לרחוץ את הידיים והרגליים, he washes his hands and feet, חלקי הגוף שבאים במגע עם העולם, the parts of the body that touches the world, לשטוף מהם את הנחות העולם, לשטוף מהם את הנחות העולם. In other words, when he sees gold, he doesn't see casino. When he sees gold, he doesn't see my new car. When he sees gold, he doesn't see a thing. When he sees gold, he sees the dwelling place of God, how he can use this gold to further godliness in this world. ולחזק את הנפש השני בישראל. How to make his godly soul happy, not his animal soul happy with the gold. וכאשר הידיים והרגליים נעשים נקיים, and when a person learned enough Chassidus, learned enough Kabbalah, until his hands and feet become pure, not dirty. And how does he know? It means that he goes out to business, and he sees the business, and he sees what? The purity of the business. He sees how the business is for God. Then what does that mean? That means that that's the way it's supposed to be. אזי יכול למלא את אדם תפקידו בעולם. Then he's doing his rightful thing in the world. לעשות מענייני העולם זהב וכסף ונחושת. Then he makes from this matter of the world gold, silver and copper a dwelling place for God. ועל זה באו הוראה. And here comes, on page 11, the teaching. You would think, come on, Rabbi, I'm not a Kabbalist, right? I can't learn to such a degree that I see gold. I'm going to say, hey, this is for God. You want me to learn to such a degree? Maybe people who, Rabbi Akiva, maybe, I don't know, somebody who learns 12 hours a day, maybe he can. But regular people like me, like you, we're not going to be able to do that. And over here comes the kiyur. Look over here how beautiful it is. שאין צורך במישהו בעל שכל גדול. It says you don't need to be a genius for that. There's not necessary to be a genius. גדול וזך ונעלה ביותר דווקא. It doesn't mean that you need somebody who's a genius. It doesn't mean you need Rabbi Akiva. It doesn't mean you need the Arizal, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. No, it can be a regular person. אין צורך בדבר שנעשה מזהב או מכסף דווקא. We're not looking for gold. We're not looking for silver. You know, we're looking for what kind of brains over here? What kind of brains are we looking for? Copper. The copper brains. That's good enough. This is what God said. יכול להיות גם דבר שנעשה מנחושת. It is possible also if the person's brain and heart is only made out of copper. הפחות שבמטלטלים. This is the least of the expensive in the metals. אלא, but it says, you have to give the copper, you know, like whom? Like the women gave the copper. With a full heart. The women were not learned. Who are the ones who learned Torah in the desert? It wasn't the women. It was the men who learned Torah. The women were not geniuses. It was Moshe Rabbeinu who was the genius. But God liked which one? The copper, the simple one. He says, that's what I like the most. And now we need to understand why. אלא שנתינת הנחושת הייתה באופן שכל נדיב ליבו יביע. It says the copper was, they gave it with a full heart. In other words, for the women, when they looked at the mirrors, that was the most prized possession. Take a mirror away. She can't put makeup, she can't, says, how am I supposed to go out into this world, the woman will tell you. If you don't give me a mirror, I'm not going to go out into this world. And they were willing to do what? To take this mirror and give it to God. בלב שלם, with a complete heart. הרי כיוון שדבר זה בא מלב יהודי זך, so bias. Even though we're not geniuses, even though our heart is not the best in the world, בכוחו לשטוף את האבק ורפת וטיט של מגרדה. It doesn't matter how much Hasidus you learn. It doesn't matter how much Kabbalah you learned. If you take the little bit of Hasidus, a little bit of Kabbalah, and you do what with it? You put it inside of you, you internalize it, you work on it, it will wash your hands and feet to such a degree that when you look at gold and silver from now on, it's for God. והתורה מספרת דבר חידוש שהכל ידעו שעניין זה נעשה על אנשי ישראל. And the Torah tells you, you should know, you know who has this specifically, and it's very, very good by them? The Jewish women. Not the Jewish men. The Jewish women have this quality. Of what? Of internalizing. Taking just a little bit and bringing everything to God. It says, how? מצד זה שהבעל נמצא כמה וכמה שעות בני העולם הזה. It says the husband, what does he do all day long? He goes out into this world and all the time he's busy with what? With gold and silver. And you know, he gets confused. All of a sudden he thinks, you know, I need gold a lot because I need to raise a family. It's a mitzvah to raise a family. You know, this is what his brain tells him. It's a mitzvah to raise a family. So I need not just $100,000 in the bank account before I give charity. I need $2 million in the bank account before I start to give charity. Because otherwise, the first charity has to be good according to the Torah. Who's the first people you need to give charity to? Your family. So I'm giving charity to them. You see what your brain tells you? This is what it means. This is the dirtiness when you're starting to deal with God. When a person starts to deal with gold and with silver, his mind, his outlook becomes dirty. הנה לאחרי זה קשה לו יותר להבחין ולברר מהו דבר זר עבורו ומהו דבר השייך אליו. All of a sudden, he doesn't realize that this money should go for charity and not to put in the bank account for a college fund for his grandchild. You know, he says, well, that's also important. My grandchild, how is he going to go to college? Or whatever it is. So I'm not going to give charity this year. I'm going to save this year for my grandchildren. That's what his mind tells him. And it's a mitzvah. Ve'ilu Aisha, but it says the women don't have this problem. הנה להיותה בת שרה רבקה רחל ולאה. It says she is the daughter of Sarah, Rivka, Rachel and Leah, her mothers. בכוחה וביכולתה, God gave them a special power, מצד כוח האמונה, because women have the power of belief, אמונה פשוטה, simple belief שישנה אצל נשים יותר מאשר אצל נשים, that women have the simple belief more than men do, להבחין ולברר שעניין פלוני שייך לעולם הזה החומרי. She immediately tells him, excuse me, the 10% you gave charity already? And he says, yeah, I put it in the bank account for our grandchildren. She knows she's going to tell him, excuse me, that's not 10% for charity. 10% for charity is 10% for charity. Now from the other stuff that you were going to go on vacation, from your vacation, put money away for the grandchildren. Not from the poor people. That's what she tells him. ועניין פלוני שייך לחלק העולם שיכולים לעשות בינו משכן ומקדש לא יתברך. So it says, and by the way, let's talk practically. Where do we really see it? We really see it in relationships. You know, when it comes to relationship between a husband and wife, you know, the relationship between husband and wife, usually men are like animals. For them, the act, is it holy? No, they're thinking about whom when they're doing the act. They're thinking about their pleasure. But women?
No, come on, it's fine.
Oh, the women didn't come to the man because they wanted to have pleasure. Why did they come to the man? For God. For godliness. In other words, the evil inclination. So Moshe thought it was evil inclination. But was it evil inclination? No. It was not the evil inclination. They're using the Yetzer Hara, the desires for pleasure. They were using those desires for what? For God. We use these desires for what? For us. And you can see it. Most women, they were there with a man. They're not interested in that part of the thing. They're interested in the holy part more than the men. The men are interested in the pleasure part, and the women are interested in the holy part of it. And this is the division. You can see women have it more than men. I'm not saying that men don't have it at all. Men have it, and some women also are after pleasure. But overall, most women are more holy when it comes to that than most men. So it says, ובכוחן של הנשים, it is the power of the women, ליתן אפילו עניין של נחושת, שהוא הפחות שמטלטלים. They even bring נחושת. It says, man learns Torah all day long, learns this all day long. And even when he learns Torah, sometimes he learns Torah not for God. You know, sometimes he learns Torah so that he can show his neighbor that he knows better than him. Even that is not for God. Sometimes. You know, women take our desire for, for the most, like an animal desire, and she turns it into what? Into godliness. Now we understand why God told Moshe, I like this better than what? Than all the rest. It says, look what women are able to do. Able to take. Look at gold, silver, and all the things in the world, and they see godliness. You know what? Even they can look and see godliness. Your desire, what we're looking for pleasure all the time, even there they see what? They see godliness. This is the power of the women. אבל הנתינה היא מתוך חביבות. Even when you give the small little thing, you give a lot. כפי שהדבר בא לידי ביטוי בצחצוח והברקת הנחושת להיות דבר הנוצץ, שאז יהיו משתקפים במתכת פני אדם. This is what the kiyor was made from those mirrors that the women say. In other words, the mirrors of the women are a symbol for us to wash our hands and feet when we deal with gold. Every time you go out and deal with gold, you remember the women. They look at desires, at your desire, and they do what to it? For godliness. You look at gold and silver and you desire it? Remember, you have to wash your hands, become like a woman. Elevate it. ועד כדי כך, שאפילו עניין כזה שאצל האנשים יכול להידמות שזהו עניין של לעומת הזה, until a manner that they can even take the carnal desire, our desire to have relationship with a woman, or with a partner, to have relationship, they can take this desire, עניין של תאווה, this carnal desire, הנה מצד האמונה הפשוטה של נשים, because of the simple belief of women, בכוחן לפעול שעל ידו יעמיד וידעו את צבאות השם. They use that desire for what? To make babies for God. Not to make babies for pleasure. The whole idea was we're going to bring the Jewish nation out of this desire. That's why it says מראות הצפקות. Very good.